Welcome to the show, IB Nation Sports Talk, up and rolling. It's Wednesday, and that means a mailbag day. We've got a mailbag full of questions right now. Vince DeDario's in the house. I'm Sean Stiers. I'm just glad, Vince, that I have all of IB Nation conditioned to know that if the show starts late, it's your fault.
I know, right? But you know what? It's not wrong. That's the problem. Like, yes, Brian was showing us some new stuff. He put that in the chat.
He was.
But I did log in at 5:01. I mean, I did just get home from work and hustled down here, gave my wife a hug and a kiss, said hi to the kids, and came straight downstairs. And 5:01, here we are. So, you know, we got a new look.
It's my fault.
Hey, what's
there he is.
My bad.
He is. And he's out.
Hey, you know, it is what it is. But yeah,
got a new look on the screen for those
clean.
Watching right now. Yes,
I like it. It's clean. We got the Believe logo up there in the corner. Yeah,
yep.
It's good looking, man. I like it.
It's like we got some new things in the works in terms of Believe and the whole thing. So it's very cool. A lot of fun.
It's always nice to have a nice new partner.
That's right.
You know, it's always good at the beginning. Let's see what happens. You know,
we're in the honeymoon phase still. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're in the honeymoon phase. Things are going really well.
Believe me when I say it'll continue.
It will. Yeah. Oh, I see what you did there. I did. I saw what you did there.
There you go. Yes, Michael, I am alive. I was back yesterday. Jess and I did the show yesterday.
How you feeling, by the way?
Little more pep in the step. I'm still not. I'm maybe 85%.
You sound
closer.
Good.
So
you sound.
Actually, when we went to the press conference today for Chris Ash and J1 Seider, and that is the official pronunciation, by the way. J1 Seider is how it's pronounced. That's how they introduced him today. So that's obviously what we're going with.
Okay.
But when I was going back and pulling some cuts and I heard my voice, it felt like a
little lower.
Felt like I had a little more bass than usual in my voice. So I don't know.
Bass.
Yeah.
It's all about that bass.
It sounded more like 9:30 in the morning than 2:30 in the afternoon.
That's a good point, though. Yeah, everybody's voice is a little deeper early in the morning.
Yes,
it's a good point. Good point.
Mine is anyway. So
yeah, no, I hear you.
Well, we've got a lot to get to. We will hear some comments from both Chris Ash, the new defensive coordinator, and J1 Seider, the new running backs coach, in rapid fire. We'll have some of those, and I think what we might do tomorrow is just pull back even more. They didn't stream it live from what I understand, but it looks like they do have a video, like the YouTube video posted from the press conference from earlier today. So you can watch that, over on the Notre Dame channel, but we'll have plenty of different thoughts. And, we don't have time to go through everything today, but it might be a decent idea tomorrow to do that. Because I think Jesse and I were talking yesterday, since I have another one of these 8:00 games, I think I might do the first part of the show with you guys again, and then ditch out, and you guys can finish up with rapid fire.
I love it.
So
I love it. And it's a home game, right? So
yes,
you're not beholden to the team bus and getting there super early and all that stuff. So
I still have to get over there early enough to record, Neil Ivy's interview.
Yeah.
That's the main reason I have to get there as early as I do to record a pregame interview and all that different kind of stuff.
But yeah, you got things to do.
That's right.
It's all good.
That's right. Only 2 more home games.
You know what? This season has gone by.
Flown, man.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like last night was the last home game for the high school that I work at. So I was there last night, and it's like, oh, well, that was senior night. Like that's it. It's over. Like, wow. Okay. It's playoffs are next week. First week of March. Here we go. So and very similar for the ladies. They got the ACC tournament next week as well, right?
They do.
Yeah,
they do. A week from today, we'll be heading down to Greensboro, North Carolina, and then they will, regardless of what happens this weekend, they'll have one of those 2 double byes.
Sure.
But obviously, there's a lot to play for these last couple of games. The number 1 seed is still on the line, and I wrote my my preview story this morning. It's not posted yet, but NC State, who's only a game behind Notre Dame right now, they get to play the two worst teams in the ACC this weekend to finish things off, whereas Notre Dame plays two ranked teams, Florida State Thursday night, and then Louisville, their biggest rival in the ACC, on Sunday. So
and they're both 12-4.
Yeah, and so essentially Notre Dame cannot afford even a split of these last two games, because if they split, and assuming NC State's going to probably obliterate, the two last place teams in the conference, although crazier things have happened,
True.
That's every now and then. But if you're going to assume that NC State's going to take care of business, Notre Dame can't have even a split, because then that would mean NC State would get the number one seed at the ACC tournament because of the head-to-head that they just picked up on Sunday. So
SMU's on a 12-game losing streak.
Yes,
just
it is.
Just throwing that out there.
It is. I was talking to the radio guy, before they were leaving, and he's like, we just want to, first year make the ACC tournament. I'm like, well, good luck, buddy. I wasn't like, they've got a couple pretty good players, but Florida State is without their top player right now, but they're still winning. The leading scorer in the nation, Tanaya Latson's been out the last three games. So I don't know what's going to happen with her tomorrow, if she's going to play or not, but they beat Georgia Tech last week without her. They've won their last three games without her. So, and another one of their top scorers as well. So, all right, let's jump into these football questions. What do you think?
I guess. I mean, it's a mailbag, so it's a free-for-all. Whatever you guys want to talk about, let's do it.
All right, Salty has filled us up. I want you to go pick a Salty question. I want you to pick the question.
Okay, let me.
Because I've got all these starred up here.
Okay, let me get in there, because there's like 25. I'm sure.
I know. Salty has filled it up, which we appreciate, but I don't want to be the one to sift through.
Let's start off clearly with a punting question. Duh.
Okay. Is Thor returning for a second season as punter? And if so, will his performance take another step up?
The first part's easy. Yes. He did get another year of eligibility, so he will be here. I don't think his performance has anything to do with him. I really don't. I think it has to do with his coaching. And if the coach allows him to just sit back there and just kick the freaking ball, he's going to be just fine. If they wanted to roll him out and do all that rugby style nonsense, then he's going to struggle at times. I really do think it's that simple. And I think that hopefully some self-scouting and the offseason gets them to understand, and they're not just trying to pound this rugby style thing into his brain in the offseason. When he punts, traditionally, he booms the ball.
Yes.
Let him do that.
I mean, that's what we saw in fall camp, the first day that we got to see him. He was booming it high. It was accurate.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, we got to see him in a game. That was the next time we really got to see him punt, and he was not the same guy. Just let him do his thing, man. Like, let's not overthink this. The guy has a leg. The guy is very accurate with that leg. Let him do it.
Yeah.
Let him hunt.
He's
Let
good
that
at
leg
it.
hunt.
Yeah. He's good at it, and that's okay. You know what I mean? So I think that he'll be fine. Like I said, as long as they don't force him to, do some things he's not comfortable doing.
I agree. Agree on all counts. How soon will it be before the need to have a recruiting coordinator becomes very urgent?
I'm good. We've got a question about this in rapid fire, correct? Or has that one been scratched?
We're scratching that because we replaced it with extra audio.
Okay,
so.
I wasn't sure which ones you were.
So go full bore on this.
All right,
that's why I brought it up.
Okay, beautiful, love that. It's almost like you know what you're doing. It's amazing. I don't know why I would ever question it.
I try. I try. It doesn't always work out, but I try.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about it at all at the moment. Like it's a dead period right now. And I know that there are offers being put out there and all of those different things, but it's a dead period. And the board is pretty well set for 26. And the recruiting staff and the coaches are executing that plan. It's not really an issue at the moment. And honestly, I think Marcus Freeman would like to have it out of the way before spring practice starts, especially since they're going to be doing spring practice in a way that is different than in the past. Like before, they were having like 2 practices a week, and it lasted like 6-8 weeks is what spring practice felt like, right? Now it's all condensed, and they're going to have more practices. It's going to be a little bit more intense from a time standpoint. I'm sure he would want to have it done by then. I don't know if that's his plan or not, but I would say that would be ideal. But I'm not overly worried about it, Sean. Like
I think it's bigger. They've got the general manager in place. And part of the general manager's job, like you said, we're in a dead period right now. So everything right now is essentially organizational anyway, and also probably coordinating, okay, what's going to happen once it becomes an open period once again, but also continuing to identify other guys who need to be on the list. And that's that's one of the jobs of the general manager. So like, this is not panic time. They've got the guy who's at the top of the food chain in that department in place. So even though the guy, whose job it is to go out to put on the bells and whistles and, coordinate, the recruiting efforts and that kind of thing, I think that is less important than having the general manager. And not just having the general manager, you still have Marcus Freeman. You still have members of the coaching staff. So any existing contacts are going to be handled by all those people anyway. And as much as Marcus Freeman is involved in the recruiting process, I think that's the most important thing. I don't completely agree. I don't think that this, getting this next position filled is nearly as important as what's already in place at Notre Dame.
Right. And
I'm not going to tell you it doesn't matter at all, but I'm
not saying that. It's not time to panic, though.
Like for where the calendar is right now, I don't think we've come even close to urgent levels, because I know people are like, well, look at what Bowden's already done at USC and, all this different stuff. I think, just remain calm and, wave your shamrock and that kind of thing. You'll be okay.
I'm not in panic mode by any stretch of the imagination. And let's say they hired a guy last week. Okay. Let's just say that happened. Does anybody think that anything would have gone any differently with the kid that went to USC from the defensive line?
Right.
I don't. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to change anything. So things are going to happen the way things are going to happen. And, bringing in a recruiting coordinator last week versus this week, it's not going to make a difference. I'm sorry. I just don't see it that way. So the 26 class is what it is, in my opinion. And the recruiting coordinator is going to have a much bigger impact on the 27s and the 28s and things like that. So, I guess I'm not that worried about it. I'm just not. And
I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Tyler, give me one player from Notre Dame you want your team to draft.
I would love a Jack Kaiser on my team. I really would. He's just a leader. He just gets it. He gets it. You know what I mean? You're not going to have to worry about him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I just, I would love to have him on my team. There's no doubt about it. I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, Xavier Watts would be a great addition. I know I'm now doing more than one.
Yes, Jesse.
I know. Dang it. Those would be my two. Like, I would be ecstatic if either one of those guys was on my team.
If Riley Mills were fully healthy, I would be up on him, because that's a need for the Cowboys, is defensive line, being able to, to stomp the run and potentially get some pass rush out of that as well. He could still potentially be a later round pick and potentially be ready for camp next year. If he were 100%, though, he would be a guy I would be on. I definitely would put Xavier Watts at the top of my wish list for the Cowboys, because safety is not maybe as quite as pressing, but at the same time, they could use a guy like Xavier Watts. Like, one of the things the Cowboys want to be is more physical going forward. And I think that both from a coverage standpoint and from a physicality standpoint, the way Watts gets downhill and lays the boom, I think that they could accomplish a lot of things having him at the back end of the secondary. So
yeah,
I think that Watts would probably be at the top of my wish list.
Fair enough.
I mean, hey, Already got Maris Leofow, so we've got one Notre Dame former linebacker there.
And look, I'm not going to be upset if Benjamin Morrison ends up on my team either. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of options out there at the top end. There's no doubt.
And like he crossed my mind, but because of his injury history, and again, like this is very specific to the Cowboys, they already have two high-end corners who have battled some injuries the last couple of years. So I just wouldn't want another guy coming into that room who's already got some injury issues.
See, you're thinking of it specific to your team, which is actually very intelligent.
You're just thinking of guys you love on the roster.
That's all I'm thinking about right now. 100% agree. Like I have no idea what the Bears like depth chart looks like or who would be a good actual fit. I'm a best available guy. Like I'm going best available, and that's what I'm bringing in.
You can't go wrong with that sometimes. Not bad philosophy either. Salty asked the very prescient question. Ooh. Will you attend the blue gold game this year?
50-50. That's where I'm at. 50-50. I missed last year. I missed the jersey scrimmage in lieu of the blue gold game, and I got the shaft. I mean, I would have much rather been at the jersey scrimmage versus. So I'm hoping we have the opportunity to go to the jersey scrimmage again this year, because if that's the case, I could give two what's about the blue gold game.
I will be at the blue gold game. So just write that down. I know that, like you don't have to worry about me. I will be there. Yeah. I will be at the jersey scrimmage, assuming there's no conflict with, potential Final Four and all that kind of stuff. Considering, the blue gold game is the 12th. Let me see. I've got the women's schedule. The Final Four, Friday, April 4th, and Sunday, the 6th. So there's a chance that I might not be at the jersey scrimmage.
Yes, there is.
Depending. So
there is that chance.
But blue gold, definitely. I will be there.
Yeah.
I guess that's a trade-off I'd probably take as well, though, right? Like, as much as I'd like to be at the jersey scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, I want to be at the jersey scrimmage more than anything else, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. We still don't have, any kind of schedule for spring, like what we're going to be able to see, how much is going to be open, any of that kind of stuff. So we
got about 3 weeks. We got 3 weeks until spring practice.
It's all very in flux as far as I'm concerned.
Speaking of women's basketball, Michael Hahn with some women's basketball comments. He's talking about Notre Dame, NC State. Their best player had a career night. They got to the Final Four last year and managed to beat Notre Dame in 2 overtimes. Why is anybody panicking? Part 2 from Michael. Okay, so NC State was 312th best free throw shooting team in women's college basketball. Didn't miss one until the second overtime. Notre Dame shot terribly from 3. This was the best in women's college basketball. Crowd definitely hostile. I mean, it was and I'm not saying this was luck by any means on NC State's part, but a million things went their way.
No doubt.
When you think about it.
No doubt.
In a game where there were 21 ties and 21 lead changes that took double overtime to finish off Notre Dame, yes, a million things went their way because, the player that he's talking about, the 33 points, the best day she had ever had prior to that, and this is Zoe Brooks that we're talking about, that had the 33 points. I think 21 was the best. Like, she had never come close to 30 before that. And I think that apparently she and Hannah Hidalgo know each other pretty well. So I don't know maybe how much, that kind of brought some of that out in her and all that. But like the free throw thing to me is still like, I still can't get past just the lopsided nature of how that game was with free throws and fouls. The fact that Notre Dame got whistled for 21 fouls, NC State got whistled for 9. And, this is not like NC State women are not like Jim Boeheim's Syracuse men. They're not out there playing zone defense all night. There's a big difference between playing man-to-man and playing zone in terms of, people look at, if all you're going to do is look at the box score and say, man, this team had all these fouls, this team had none. Well, if one team is playing zone, you would expect that they're probably not going to have as many fouls. But you had 2 man-to-man teams out there, and you had a true freshman post player for NC State who played 43 minutes and had 0 fouls in the game. I'm just not buying that.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Not buying it. So you're right, Michael. You're right. You would know more about this than me. He says he doesn't follow hoops like he used to. Anyone from up north that could make it to the field house for state basketball?
So, quote unquote, up north means the northern half of the state, in my opinion. Fishers is the number 1 team in the state, and they are in the north, even though they're kind of an indie area school, but they are the number 1 team, and it's not all that close. The next team in the north that might be able to challenge them would be Northridge, who's much more up in our area. They are a very senior-ridden, very good team. They're well coached. They got a shot. I mean, they've been kind of dismantling teams this year. So Northridge would be my guess outside of the Indy area. But Fishers is technically a northern team, so I think they're going to represent the north down there at state.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Joe coming strong. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Ooh.
Going with the quotes.
I think he's referring back to the, and again, I'm not like saying NC State was lucky. They played a great game.
They did, but everything went their way.
Right.
Yeah,
Notre Dame's the best 3-point shooting team in the nation. And
right.
They didn't shoot threes well all day long in that game. I think they were, like 20-some%. And I talked about it yesterday, the fact that I think it was 13 assists on 40 made field goals, which is around 32%, like assist to field goals made for the season. They're at like 52%. They stopped moving the ball the way they needed to. And, they didn't like turn the ball over in buckets or anything like that. NC State shot extremely well. Notre Dame did not shoot nearly as well as they're capable of. And again, 21 lead changes, 21 ties. Very close game. If Notre Dame plays closer to its typical game, then they walk out of there with a hard-fought road win.
Yeah.
So,
agreed. And it was. I texted you right when the game started. I was like, "That's one heck of a crowd." Like they brought the crowd. I was very, very impressed by the crowd, and you could feel it even just through the TV. That it was a good crowd. So I will agree with. They were.
I'll tell you what, that game day whipped them into a frenzy, man.
Really?
Yeah, they were, because like when we got to the arena at about 10:15, and as we were walking in with the team, they were letting the students in, like for this to the student section, and they were like showing their student tickets and the whole thing. And game day didn't start until 11 o'clock, and so they were getting rowdy, and they were playing the game day, over the Jumbotron. So like anytime, the students were just, getting wild, and they had that whole thing packed, man. Game day's coming to Notre Dame this Sunday.
Yep.
And I hope that Notre Dame's student section turns out for Notre Dame for that Louisville game, Notre Dame's biggest rival, the way NC State students did for that game Sunday. Because it was, other than UConn, I would say it's probably the best, outside Purcell Pavilion environment that I've ever, really seen. So
yeah, it was rowdy, man.
And points of it, you could probably argue, are even better than UConn, just because it's a little bit smaller, gym, so it's a little bit more on top of you. It's not quite as spread out, and stuff like that. But UConn always, like, their student section always supports women's basketball and the whole thing too. So they're into it. But yeah, it was a really fun, really great environment to be in. Like that's like, and especially from a basketball standpoint, like you like broadcasting the games, you're so much closer, to the crowd, obviously, as opposed to a football game or even a baseball game or something like that. So it's always fun to kind of be in those environments. Vince keeps shaking his head. Yes, that's great.
It's good radio.
It's great radio.
But no, I really enjoyed watching the game, and the way the runs worked in that game, which is what really kind of why I was never worried about that game. And obviously Notre Dame ended up losing that game, but it felt like NC State would go on these runs that would just get them so fired up, and then Notre Dame would just methodically just come on back every single time, without much of a problem. The only problem Notre Dame had is they just couldn't build that lead because I feel like if they would have built a significant lead,
Mm-hmm.
NC State wasn't coming back. You know what I mean?
There were a couple points where they had some opportunities
Yes.
to kind of continue.
Right.
But then, again, they didn't have a ton of turnovers, but they would turn it over or just, go down and miss a shot.
Miss a layup, like 2 layups on the same possession, things like that would just keep that crowd into it, which was a big piece of it. I mean, that crowd was the sixth man. You know what I mean? Like they kept that crowd in the game. And that was definitely part of that win. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And Notre Dame just couldn't put them away. Like I don't know. I don't know if they were pressing. I don't know, what. They just couldn't put them away. But it doesn't worry me long term because Notre Dame played one of their worst games, like as a whole. I don't know. It's just never worried.
And again, like if you just look at it statistically, like they still shot over 40%. It was the 3-point shooting that's the biggest glaring hole in that whole thing. But like just looking at the stat sheet, I mean, it was just a very close game. And if Notre Dame's defense, that's the biggest probably statistical marker is Notre Dame defensively didn't, they just weren't able to string together some stops like they usually do.
I mean, they missed 23 pointers. Like that's not Notre Dame.
That's
not going to happen.
They missed 57 field goals overall. But again, like this goes back to my thing with the fouls. They took almost 100 shots and were only fouled 9 times.
Yeah,
by a team playing man-to-man defense. I'm sorry. That math just doesn't add up, Vince.
Right.
It doesn't add up.
Agreed. I mean, they only went to the free throw line 10 times. The whole game. And NC State goes to the free throw line 26 times. Come on.
Exactly.
Like, that's not.
Exactly.
That's, and then, of course, NC
and then they
State
waived
shot
off
almost
the
40%.
foul on Maddie Westbeld because they decided that it came after the clock had expired.
Right.
And I don't know what you thought about it. It was hard for me to tell. They were replaying it on the video monitor.
She was coming down to foul, but by the time she made contact, it was 000s.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the action was happening, but they didn't make contact until it was zeros. But still, like, and Notre Dame lost both of those end of period deals. Wasn't there 2 of those that they had to go to replay for? I think there was a shot. And then there was a foul. I forget exactly what ended up happening, but like there was some weird end of period moments, and like I said, everything just went NC State's way. That's not going to happen 2 times in a row. I just, it's basketball. Anything can happen, obviously, and a loss isn't necessarily a terrible thing for Notre Dame.
The other thing I've noticed is this. I don't know if you call it continuation, but like. I think we saw it a couple of times in the NC State game, like fouls on, like where it looks like to me, like the ball handler is still driving and not necessarily going for a shot,
and they're
giving them 2 before they've ever actually gotten into the act of shooting.
Right?
Like, do you remember that from the other day? Like, were you
like
me? Were you going what?
Yeah, I was. It's like, come on,
yeah.
100%.
I've seen more of that this year, and it felt like that happened at least a couple times in that game as well when you talk about the free throw disparity. So,
but I will say that shot by Sonia Citron to move it into overtime, that was unreal. Gold. It was unreal. That was my daughter and I were watching the game, and she's like, it gets down, they're down by 3. She's like, Dad, Notre Dame's cooked. I was like, it's not looking good. And then she puts that shot up, and we both jump up and down. We're screaming, and she's like, "They're uncooked! They're uncooked!" It was really funny. Like,
they're uncooked.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Oh, because they were cooked.
Because they were cooked. Yeah. Now they're uncooked. Yeah. It was really funny. She really gets into the girls' games. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing shot. I mean, I was not a believer with 4. Whatever was left to go, I was not a believer, and that was a heck of a shot.
That was tough. 2 hands in her face.
I know.
2 hands in her face.
It
was amazing. I know. Okay. I'll go ahead and throw Mark's question in here since we're on the women's basketball. With the growth of women's basketball on campus, making it more popular with students and other attendees, what is happening with men's lacrosse recent success with student interest?
It's a great question. I have no idea. I've never been to a men's lacrosse game, so I don't know the answer to that. Now, I know that, the football team comes out, after practice and they're there to support like Faison and, those guys that are the two-way players and things like that. I know that the stands are fairly full. I just don't know if those are students or not. I honestly don't know. But they've got good crowd support. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Seems like, especially when the weather's decent, they get pretty good crowds out there. I mean, yeah, I don't know that they're filling up the stadium, but you're right. Like we've definitely seen, like football groups of football players and stuff like that. They're ranked number 1 in the nation once again, 2-time defending national champs and ranked number 1 right now. They've got a pretty good chance for a three-peat.
Yeah, no doubt.
Andre, regardless who the quarterback is in 25, they should have at least 3,800 passing, 35 touchdowns, 300 rushing with 5 touchdowns, or is that too much? What are your numbers? Man,
oh my gosh, I'm terrible with numbers. You're telling me they're going to have almost 4,000 passing yards, and I mean, they should be good. I'm not ready to put numbers on it. I'm not, because number one, we don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be. They should be good running the ball. They're going to have a Heisman Trophy candidate in the backfield, no doubt about it. If everybody's healthy, they're going to have one hell of an offensive line. They should be very good. But 300 rushing, what is that? 300 rushing with 5 touchdowns. Like a game? They're definitely not going to have 300 rushing yards a game. That's not
no, I don't think he's saying per game. I think he's saying for the season, like 300 rushing yards.
Oh, the quarterback's going to have 300 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Got it. I thought it was the offense. I was very confused.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
I mean, it's possible. I don't. Whoever the quarterback is going to be an athlete and have the ability to run the football. And quarterbacks can sneak it in, and get some rushing touchdowns and some things like that. And whoever the quarterback is going to be smart enough to run a little, zone read down there in the red zone. So, I mean, I'm fine with the 300 and the 5. I think I'm just a little hesitant on the 3,800.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be completely satisfied with around 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, because again, like this is going to be a first-time starter no matter what. So, I mean, saying 3,835 touchdowns is a lot to put on a guy who's going to be a first-time starter, regardless of who it is. But you are still going to have 2 really good running backs. You're going to have a good offensive line. You should have, a better receiving core to throw to for this guy. And so, 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns as a compliment to like a couple of running backs who I think are probably going to be like the production that Love and Price have, I think is going to be pretty similar to what Singleton and Katron Allen had. I couldn't think of his name there for a second. Allen at Penn State last year. Like I think that they should both be right around 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards, something like that. So like you're talking over 2,000 rushing yards, 3,000 passing yards. I think that would be a pretty solid compliment.
I like it.
Okay. Given Coach Ash's history of coaching the secondary, will his interactions with Coach Mickens be different in this area than Coach Golden's were?
They'll be different because that's his area of expertise, quote unquote, right? So it'll be different, but the marching orders are let Mike Mickens do his thing. Let's be honest, right? I mean, it would be silly to mess with that drink concoction. Like, don't mess with that. And Al Golden was a linebackers coach. Like that's where he made his bread and butter, right? So it'll be a different interaction. Doesn't mean better or worse, but it will definitely be different. Again, Mike Mickens is elite. Let Mike Mickens be Mike Mickens.
Yes, that's the thing. And this did come up at the press conference.
Oh, did
today. This is not one of the cuts that we're going to have today, but like he was asked, what's your, I don't know, philosophy, like, how are you, what's your role going to be. And he
Okay.
basically said he's going to float around and he's going to let Mike Mickens do his thing. So like that'd be the best way to boil it down. So yeah.
Duh. Like, yeah.
So you don't have to overthink it too much.
Love that. It's smart. It's knowing your people.
Speaking of assistant coaches, do you expect the period for coaches to depart for other opportunities to have closed at this time?
I do. Yeah, I think that ship has sailed at this point. I think all major coaching vacancies have been taken care of. Every staff in the country wants to be whole by the time they get to spring ball. Mm-hmm. And spring ball is either occurring at some places or right around the quarter for others. And I don't see any more movement happening. So this is your 2025 coaching staff that is in place right now, minus the recruiting coordinator.
Right. I mean, barring, like some unforeseen, some scandal pops up someplace and somebody gets fired, and then all of a sudden, some opportunity comes up. Like where we are right now, it's almost March, and pretty much this time, the last couple of years, you've seen some of these moves come up late January, early to mid-February, but by, right now is when things have calmed down, so no, I don't expect any more either. What level of performance do you foresee for Jaden Ausberry this season?
Jaden Ausberry is a very, very good football player. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's the odd man out. It honestly depends on how Chris Ash is going to use him. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, is he going to be on the field as a rover? What is that going to look like? Because, the past couple of years, that nickel has been more of the dominant player on the field as opposed to the rover. And so Jaden Ausberry's kind of had to take a back seat. And so I don't know the answer to that. I mean, he has the ability to have a breakout season. There's no doubt about it. Is he going to get the snaps to do it? I think that's the bigger question. And that's going to be up to Jaden Ausberry, in my opinion. If he can prove that he can cover and do some of the things that a nickel can do, then he's going to get more snap opportunities. It's all going to be based on personnel, I think.
Yeah, and I wonder if he gets more of those opportunities again this spring, because remember they did more of that last spring where they weren't using the nickel as much and they were keeping him on the field to do some of that. I wonder if they kind of rep him a little bit more in some of those situations, to maybe, like see if that gets him more opportunities to stay on the field. But that is, with that rover position, that's part of the deal. Like sometimes you've got to come off the field. If you're not able to carry out, those duties of that nickel, then you're going to have to come off the field. And they had some really good nickel play from Jordan Clark last season. So there was no reason to keep Ausberry on the field when you were getting the kind of play that you got from Clark. So,
Yep. Agreed.
Interesting one from Mark, and man, like he's going deep on some of these questions today. What will be the long-term impact of the Ivy League teams now being eligible to participate in FCS playoffs for both the Ivies and the entire FCS?
FCS is Division 1, right? 1A?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically,
I always
FCS,
mix that up. Okay.
Yeah. What used to be considered 1AA. Yeah.
Is FCS. Oh, so they're dropping down to FCS? Or maybe they always have been.
They've always been at FCS. They just weren't involved in the playoffs in the past.
Oh, wow. Mark, I have not followed FCS postseason. I can at least tell you that much, man. I don't know what the long-term impact is going to be. I think minimal, to be perfectly honest with you. Ivy Leagues are unique. They don't give out athletic scholarships. I assume that that's going to remain. And if that's the case, they're still not going to be able to compete at the highest level. They're going to be good for who they are and for what they are, but they're still going to struggle, in my opinion, to compete with the best of the best at the FCS level. That's where I'm at.
I agree, because of the fact that they're not giving out scholarships.
It's important.
You can go to freaking South Dakota State, North Dakota State, and those schools and play an elite level of FCS football and compete for national championships and get your education paid for as well. Now, it's obviously not the same kind of education you're going to get at an Ivy League school, but you know,
Clearly.
that's part of the trade-off, right? Like, you know, that if you're
Yes.
going Ivy, you've got the kind of grades and you're thinking probably more about
Big
your
picture.
30, yes,
Correct.
as it's Notre Dame likes to, or 40, or, you know, whatever
Whatever it is. Yeah.
you're thinking more about that than
Yes.
just your immediate football future.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Agreed. And look, there's some really good football players that go to the Ivies. No doubt about it. But it's very difficult to compete with schools that are giving out scholarships, man. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It just is. I don't think there's going to be a long-term effect.
I am, by the way, there were some questions about Ash and Seider that I'm kind of going to just push back when we start talking about.
Makes sense.
When we hear some of the audio from the press conference from earlier today. Andre, in 2025, what are the chances of Notre Dame having a 1,000-yard receiver plus 1,000-yard running back plus 500 yards for a tight end? He is 8 out of 10. I think I would go. Did you say 6?
I did.
6 would be my answer as well.
And
It's
why is it
because of the
6?
receiver. It's because of the wide receiver.
Okay.
I think it's virtually a lock that we're going to see a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like, think about it. You're going to take Riley Leonard out of the mix, and so you're going to put at least a little bit more on the backs. You're still going to, you know, try to balance the reps and all that, you know, the carries and all those kind of things. But I think that we'll see a 1,000-yard rusher. I'm very confident in, you know, like I'd go 9.5 out of 10 on that. I would go probably 50-50 on the 1,000-yard receiver just because of recent history. And as much as we keep trying to, as we, you know, keep saying, as much as we've tried to amp it up and jack up our expectations the last few years, it's fallen very flat.
Yep.
The 500-yard tight end honestly makes it even a little bit more difficult this year because, like, there's probably more questions about the tight end room going into this season than what at least the last probably 12 to 15 years of Notre Dame football.
The 6 out of 10 for me is the tight end, to be perfectly honest
Really?
with you. I think Notre Dame has a shot at a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't want to get crazy about it. Like, it's like a 7.5 maybe for me. I think the 1,000-yard rusher is like almost a lock, like almost a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And that's either guy, if not both. Like, I really do think that. And I don't think that's going too far out on a limb. The 500-yard receiving touchdown or receiving tight end yards, that's the biggest question mark for me in this particular scenario. So if I was going to rank them, it would be rusher, receiver, tight end. And the tight end one might be a distant third, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Unless Steve Angeli is the quarterback. Then the tight end is going to have like 800 yards. You're welcome.
See, you're putting Angeli right in the Drew Pine category, huh?
I couldn't help it.
You're just going to start it right now.
I couldn't help it. It's obviously a joke, but he does like those shorter passes, and that's what we have seen. And
he does.
He does. I'm not going too far out on a limb like on that one. Now, 800 yards is obviously a lot, but I would feel very comfortable at 500 if that was the case.
Mike asks, since college football is no professional ball with games and such, should they remove dead periods in recruiting? I'm not sure I fully understand this question.
I'm just looking at it. Should they remove dead periods?
Okay.
No, they should not remove dead periods because coaches need a chance to take a break too. You can't just have a 12-month, 365-day a year free for all. Like that's just
because it's already basically an 11.5 month a year job. Like,
correct.
They barely have time to take any time off at all.
They take off in July, and even that is slimming out at this point, and February. Like, those are the two times. And I'm sorry, you got to give them a little bit of time off. I don't think that they should remove dead periods. Absolutely not. And to be honest with you, the recruits need some time off of it as well. Yeah,
they don't need to be hounded year round.
Correct. Those big time recruits are getting hassled all the time, and they need a break from that too. So they need dead period. If anything, I'd be adding dead periods, not subtracting them.
Good call, Vince.
Thank you. I'm all about the mental health. All right. Mental health and welfare.
That's everybody. What I've always said about you. Mental health, DeDario.
It's true. It's true.
How much of an increase in targets do you expect for Jaden Greathouse at all three levels?
They're going to go up at all three levels.
I mean, he's elite, right?
He's
DK,
elite.
He's elite.
He's elite. DK knows.
And I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. I just expect Jaden Greathouse to be one of the top 2 receivers on the team.
Agreed. And his targets will go up. I don't have a number. They will go up 15%.
And I expect it to be like legitimate. Like typically these last several years, it's been, well, he's Notre Dame's leading wide receiver. And usually that's meant the tight end is at the top. And then he's the top receiver afterwards. Like I expect like Greathouse to be one of 2 wide receivers who are sitting at the top of the production heap for the Irish this season. How about Kingston Viliamu Asa? How impactful do you expect him to be?
I think the combination of Kingston and Bowen with more full-time reps at linebacker is going to be one of the best 1-2 punches in the country. So I think he's going to be absolutely excellent as long as he stays healthy. And that's obviously the caveat at every position everywhere. But if him and Bowen are both healthy, man, you're going to see some pretty elite linebacker play.
I agree. Like seeing those 2 guys play together, and I expect to see those 2 guys play together a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have just a ton of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Ton of it.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Siggy13 says, new haircut equals All-American season for Kingston.
Oh, did he cut off his hair?
I don't know.
Ooh.
I guess I did see a video today. Was that him or was that, I don't know.
Okay. I don't know. I kind of like the flow in the back.
Andre is big on the stats questions today. Who's going to have the most multi-purpose yards? I'm just going to go Jeremiah Love. Like, especially if he's back there returning kicks this year. I mean, who else is it going to be? Even if it's just rushing and receiving, like who's
the only other person that could potentially be that guy is if they allow Jordan Faison to return punts.
Yeah,
there's a chance there, but I agree with you. I think Jeremiah Love is the answer. But the only one that I think could touch him potentially would be Jordan Faison.
Good questions today.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
Like it. Vince? Are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm so ready. I thought that's what you might be up to there.
We got a new card.
That's right.
Rapid fire right on the screen there. That's what I was looking for. Today's the first day we've had it. Brian was
right.
One of the things Brian was showing us.
I like it. It's a nice clean look. We don't have kind of the picture of the background anymore. It's just like, here we are. This is it. I dig it.
Very clean.
Very clean.
Very clean.
It's like the icy white uniform, Sean. Just clean.
Okay, it looks like missing something here. For some reason, I'm supposed to have all these cuts on my screen, but they're not. Oh, here it is. I pushed the wrong button. So we had some assistant coach press conferences today. We got to talk to both new defensive coordinator Chris Ash, as well as new running backs coach J1 Seider. And in case Tommy Guns is in the house, he was asking for the official pronunciation. It is J1 Seider. We got that official today. J1 Seider is how it's said. But we're going to start with Chris Ash, starting with his defensive philosophy, as in, whose defense are you going to run? What's the defense going to look like? You haven't been a defensive coordinator for a few years. So here's the answer.
There's been a really good football played here on defense. There's been standards. There's been accountability. They've been well coached. And we're just looking at ways that we can try to enhance it and make it better. Conceptually, we're going to keep doing a lot of the same things that have been done here. Terminology may change a little bit. Some fundamentals may change a little bit. But at the end of the day, the way Notre Dame has played defense is the way Notre Dame is going to play defense in the future. I'm here to become one of them. And that's what they're not here to adjust to me. I'm here to adjust to them. The staff, the players, the scheme, the whole overall culture of the organization. That's what I'm coming to be a part of. This is Notre Dame's defense. This is not my defense. This is Notre Dame's, and I'm coming here to try to help continue the success that they've had on defense and find ways to try to make it better. That's it.
All right, so there's Chris Ash, and Joe dropped this question in earlier in the mailbag. Were you convinced by the repetitive response from Chris Ash?
Yeah,
that
you're gonna
this
struggle. I will.
I know. This is Notre Dame's defense. I just want to keep it going. What do you think, Vince? You just heard it for the first time, I believe.
Yep, that was the first time. I like the philosophy, and I have a feeling that's the charge that was given to him by Marcus Freeman. Like, look, if you're going to come here,
this is what we're doing.
Yeah, we'd love to have you, but we've had a lot of success, and we would like to continue it. And we've got the people in place to continue it. And so that's what you're going to do. You're going to continue it. And you're also going to continue it with the coaches that we have in place. You know, that's why, remember we talked when this first went down of him getting hired as the coach. It's like, it's kind of a pigeonholed position because you're coming into Notre Dame. You're going to have to run the defense that's already here. You're not going to be able to bring in any of your own coaches. You know, you're going to have to deal with the coaches that are already on staff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a lot of high-level defensive coordinators that would be like, yeah, I'm in for that. You know what I mean? And so that's why you have a Chris Ash here, right? And so I absolutely believe that that's the plan. I think that was on the job description that got sent out.
It really, you know, when Al Golden showed up, you know, Al Golden and Marcus Freeman, you know, Freeman came in, you know, because Golden had, you know, he had a lot of experience both as a head coach and defensive coordinator and came from the NFL. And Freeman was like, this is his defense. You know, and you know, Golden said we're basically keeping a lot of the terminology. I'm gonna, you know, do more learning so they don't have to, you know, all those different kind of things. I mean, like at least the foundation of the defense in terms of you've got a Viper defensive end, you've got a Rover, you know, structurally those kind of things that stayed in place from Clark Lee to Al Golden, and now it gets handed off to Chris Ash. The biggest difference is going to be just the philosophy of how the defensive coordinator calls the game, how aggressive he is. You know, I don't think Chris Ash probably is going to, you know, blitz to the extent, you know, that Al Golden did, and, you know, just how complex things are, you know, they're like, so there's going to be, you know, at least some philosophical differences there. But I think it just makes sense that you're going to keep, like, this is the defense that we've had. It works. Why scrap the system? Because we just went to the freaking national championship game with an elite defense.
Correct.
So I think it makes a lot of sense.
It's, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like it's not broke. It's in very good hands. It's a very good foundation. You got very good players. He won't need to blitz as much, I don't think, with the personnel that they're going to have on the field and some different things. But you're right. The difference is going to be on game day, the play calling, the philosophy, even though that philosophy is dictated by the head coach. You're still going to see some differences. It's just, this is Notre Dame's defense. I have a feeling he's just repeating what Marcus Freeman said to him in the interview. Like, that's how, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be too much different. No. Michael says he has to admit he was impressed with Chris Ash at the presser. I thought I was. I feel one thing that happened before the press conference even started, you know, we were like media, we were sitting, you know, in the room, and Ash came in first before J1 Seider was there, and he went around to each of us, shook our hand, introduced himself. We got a chance to introduce ourselves to him. That doesn't happen very often. So, I mean, at least, you know, good impression, you know, he's still got to go out and show that he can do it. But I thought it was, you know, you'd rather win games than win the press conference, but I felt like he had a good press conference today. It's at least a good start.
You get one opportunity to make a first impression. So
yeah, thought it was a good one.
You know, see how it goes. Charlie Weiss made a great first impression at his press conference too. Most people do.
Most people.
Most. I said most. Most.
Chris Ash also asked why now in terms of coming to Notre Dame.
It's a great question. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I was actually in personnel this last year in Jacksonville. I enjoyed that as a great learning opportunity. Wasn't looking for another job. Coach Freeman called and we started to have some initial conversations. And I looked at the whole thing. It's Notre Dame, the type of people that come to Notre Dame, players, staff, obviously the recent success, the opportunity for sustained success in the future. All of those things together made this a no-brainer for me. And it was going to take a lot to leave where we were at, but this was one of those jobs that you just can't pass up on.
Saying all the right things, Sean Stiers.
Saying the right things, pushing the right buttons.
It's like he listened to the parting words of Al Golden. It was like, you know what? That sounds really good. I think I should say those things. And he did.
I mean, and it really, like some of those things really weren't that different than the things Al Golden was saying when he came here either. It's
right.
Freeman, it's Notre Dame, all those things.
Now,
right?
The most interesting thing taken from that particular soundbite was that Marcus Freeman reached out to him.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if there was an agent involved, that maybe reached out to Notre Dame first with interest. We don't know that. But I find it interesting that he's the one that reached out to Chris Ash, that Marcus Freeman is the one that reached out. I find that to be interesting.
They do both have the same agent.
That's
apparently.
true.
So
point. Yep.
I'm sure, that's a good middleman right there.
For sure.
As a starter. So yeah. But yeah, again, I like Salty was asking impressions of Ash, impressions of Seider. We're going to get a lot more into it. We're going to hear some more of their comments on tomorrow's show. But I will say, there was kind of a checklist of things I think that you want to hear. And when he comes, right out of the gate talking about we're not scrapping this defense. This is Notre Dame's defense. And basically I'm the facilitator of the defense. I'm going to be the one, who changes, to fit what the players need. I think that that's a really good start.
I love that attitude. I mean, you can't, like I said, saying all the right things. That's a good sign.
J1 Seider, new running backs coach, also asked, why now? By me, actually.
It was never easy. You've been in a place 7 years. The type of room that we have built at Penn State, the culture with those kids. It's timing, right? There's never the right time, and there's never the bad time. Sometimes you're at the back end where you don't have no control of it, and you get, staff get let go, and you got to leave, and you're on a staff where you win and you don't have to leave. But, we talked about it. Me and the family, it was just like you say no every year, or, you don't want to also be complacent either. It was Notre Dame. It was Marcus Freeman. We built a relationship 14 years ago when we were young coaches in this profession. Through Jared Parker, who used to be here, that just went to Purdue, and we was on the road together, and we kind of hit it off. It almost like I was telling my wife, sometimes it's like talking to myself. When I talk to him, I'm like I'm talking to myself. And we just stayed in touch. And then we always said it had to take something special for us to leave, right? Whether it's a head coach, a coordinator position, there was some chance with some NFL teams, but when this opportunity came, we thought hard about it. We turned the phone off for a couple of days. The only person we really talked to was Marcus, a little bit here and there. And we just said, it was time to do something different. Go challenge yourself, go walk in different shoes. And I felt comfortable doing that because at the end of the season last year, when I met with my two kids that came back, I told them, do not come back to Penn State, come back for me. Make sure if you come back for your own selfish reason, or you leave for your own selfish reason, and I will support you in any manner I can.
I thought this one was a little more interesting. Hearing J1 Seider say that.
Word
Vince,
salad.
Like, you're going word salad. I mean,
it was a lot of that, but
it comes down to Marcus Freeman to me.
Yeah.
Because like he talked about Jared Parker and the connection. Basically, he was saying when Freeman and Parker went to Purdue, those guys were kind of out on the road together, apparently recruiting at some different places, because I think that Seider at that point was at Marshall and West Virginia around the time that those guys were at Purdue. And obviously, Parker ultimately ended up with a connection to West. So they're just like this like, and he talked more about Parker specifically later. But I mean, ultimately, like I was, like this guy had a great situation at Penn State. He had been there for 7 years. He just had 2,000-yard running backs. He's been the co-offensive coordinator, assistant head coach. So he had all this title and everything else. He's not going to be the co-offensive coordinator here. He's got a little extra, associate coach or whatever it is, that comes with it here at Notre Dame. But ultimately, like everything else, apparently, it comes down to Marcus Freeman. Like Marcus Freeman is the relationship guy, and he's always been the relationship guy. And he's had that connection with Seider for a long time, even though looking at their coaching paths and resumes, if you look at them, like there was no actual overlap there, but they had some overlap just, in the summer's recruiting and those kind of things.
I would say if I'm listening to that as a Penn State fan, I'm like,
you
didn't give me a reason. You didn't give me a reason. I don't understand why you left. Like that's what I got out of that answer.
Right.
We hear Marcus Freeman, and I agree with you completely on that. It was he wants to work for Marcus Freeman. Who wouldn't when your options are Marcus Freeman or James Franklin? I think the winner is clear. But again, if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm still upset, man, that he left. I don't know how else to say it. I'm upset about it, but he wanted to be here, and it's all about relationships, and that's what it was. And he's a heck of a coach, man. This is a absolute home run, grand slam, no matter how you slice it higher. And Notre Dame fans should be about as fired up as you could possibly be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, Siggy13 asking, what is Believe? And if you're watching on the YouTube show, you see BLEAV. We have been, since the start of the new year, part of the Believe podcast network. And, we used to be hosted by another podcast network. We are now hosted by Believe. And we appreciate the relationship that we have with Believe. And I'm not just saying that. From everything that I've been told, things seem to be going extremely well right now.
Look, it's a great relationship. If you have Fubo television, there's a Believe station on there, and you could find some Irish Breakdown shows on there, as well as other Believe podcasting network shows on there. So that's kind of a fun channel to look at if you're, want some background noise and things like that. But yeah, Believe has been an awesome partner, and we're talking about doing all kinds of different stuff. So we're excited about it. And DK's not wrong. Believe is elite.
Believe is elite. Yes.
They just are.
You better believe it.
That's right. Oh, the puns are they're there. They're there for the taking.
They are.
All I can say.
It's easy with this one, though.
It is.
Okay, so one more from J1 Seider. Talked a little bit about the running back room philosophy.
Me, as a coach, I always believe you coach the bottom of your roster no different than you coach the top of your roster. And that's how you build depth. Because your fifth can easily become your one. And so you got to prepare like that throughout the week. So I always believe throughout the weeks that we in season try to have 4 guys ready. Because it's hard to get 5 and 6 guys ready. But have 4 guys in a rotation where they can learn, they can have a process to be ready to play in the game, because there's an ankle injury, right? We play a physical game. We're the one position where every play somebody's trying to hit you, right? And so we have to have guys ready, and we have to build depth to get to the championship, which Notre Dame did. You got to have depth. Injuries happen. I thought one of the greatest things to go play against this team last year, from my offensive point of view, they had a lot of injuries, and you never knew the difference who was in the game, whether the guy injured or this guy been playing all year, which is a testament to this program what Coach Freeman built.
So, without coming out and saying, well, Dylan McCullough had a list of 8 jobs, for his running. That's kind of how I was trying to, I said, it goes beyond just the top 2 guys on the depth chart, like what's your philosophy in terms of how you use guys throughout the running back room. So that was kind of the answer to that. So I don't know. What do you think of that, Vince?
Got to coach your roster top to bottom. It was a good answer. You know what I mean? I think I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit more top heavy than maybe it was under the last coach.
Well, and that's what, like, listening to that. I mean, everyone wants to,
It's
you
more of a
got to have depth and all those different kind
1-2
of
punch
things.
kind of a deal. Like I think you're
Yeah.
going to see a little bit more of that
Right.
than maybe in the past. But who knows? I mean, look, I don't know. I can't speak to the talent, the depth outside of the top two guys at Penn State, what they had in their room. I know the
Exactly.
depth at Notre Dame, and they've got some good depth, right? You can get those guys on the field in some packages and in some different things. And I think that's good. That would be my charge if I'm Marcus Freeman. Like, look, I get 1A, 1B. Those guys are elite. Make it happen. But you got some other guys here that you kind of need to feed the rock to a little bit. Not only to keep them happy, which is I would never coach like that, but at the same time, we are in the world of the transfer portal. You got to keep them somewhat happy.
I think in today's game, that's even more of a thing than ever. Like 100%. I think you've got to find ways. It's not, again, you're not just going to play everybody for the sake of playing everybody,
right?
But to keep your room intact and to make sure that you keep that depth and high level depth going forward, I think that you do have to find ways to kind of keep these guys involved.
Agreed. And look, the reality of the situation is you're going to lose your top two guys after the 25 season. And so those guys better be ready to roll that are behind them. And so it would behoove you to make sure that they are involved in the game plan and things of that nature. That's where I would be.
Right. Joe wants to know the future of the running back room. The top two could go to the NFL next year. I fully expect both of them to go to the NFL.
100% expect it as well. Yeah. So the future is Keedron Young and Aeneas Williams, and that's not a bad 1-2 punch there either, because they are different styles of backs. And I think you're going to be just fine in that nature as long as they keep recruiting that room the way they've been. Future of the room's fine, but enjoy 25 because you're going to have two elite guys at 1A, 1B.
Right. But again, that's why, like, when you look at J1 Seider and the kind of recruiting that he did at Penn State, easily transferable coming to Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you've got guys like Love and Price making highlight plays. Like that's a big recruiting piece for you as well. When those guys are sitting there in high school and they're seeing those guys make those kind of plays every week on national TV, that'll help you as well. And I mean, I think, we were talking about Aeneas Williams a couple of weeks ago, and I like someone was saying, "Oh, Aeneas is a Sherlock, NFL running back." Well, I mean, he hasn't had the opportunities to show that he's a surefire lock NFL running back.
Yes,
yet. I think
he's got 2 years left, obviously at Notre Dame minimum, and one of those years at least he'll be probably a featured back. So I would still use him. He's clearly a weapon that you can use. You know what I mean? I would definitely still use them.
And I think if you want to, like we've talked about 21 personnel and, or even 22 or whatever it happens to be, like if you want to keep some, make sure you're keeping some extra tread on the tires of both Love and Price, Aeneas Williams, I mean, look at what he showed you, with that pass reception that he had in the Penn State game as an example, like the ability to catch the ball and run the ball. I think that you could easily pair up him with one of those two other guys and get one of those other guys off the field, as you're managing snap counts and that kind of thing. On the subject of the coaches, DK wants to know if Freeman is taking over for Saban at Resurrecting Careers. I mean, really, did Al Golden's career really need resurrecting? Right. Like if that's the implication there? I think he just needed the opportunity to prove he could be a defensive coordinator at this level.
Yeah. I like it.
But, obviously the references to Ash. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, this would be, number 2, I guess, on the list. So we'll see. I mean, Al Golden definitely got a step up when he left Notre Dame, and we'll see what happens with Chris Ash. If that's the career trajectory that he's trying to get. I felt that it was clear that Al Golden was either going to be a college head coach again or get back into the NFL as a DC. That was always his drive and his motivation, I think. I think he might have underestimated Notre Dame to a degree with the kind of kids that are here and being able to do some certain things. I think that's probably accurate, but he got what he wanted out of the deal. Let's be honest. He got what he wanted at the place that he wanted.
Mhm.
It couldn't have worked out better for Al Golden. I don't know what Chris Ash's, career aspirations are. He was an analyst in Jacksonville or wherever it was, right? Now he's the defensive coordinator with one of the best defenses in the country. Like, I don't know what his career aspirations are. He said he wasn't looking for a job, and one just fell in his lap, basically. Like,
because Marcus Freeman called it.
Yeah, right. What a great situation that is.
I know.
Like,
I was just sitting down there in Jacksonville, minding my own business, and Marcus Freeman offered me a job to be defensive coordinator
at one of the best universities with one of the best defenses. Like, okay, why not? Hey, Marcus, I'll see you in South Bend. Like, that's just wild to me. Wild.
Yep. Fill in the blank. It's blank. Nebraska has opted out of a 2-year home-and-home football series with Tennessee, replacing the Vols with home games against Bowling Green in 2026 and Miami, Ohio in 2027.
It's telling about who Nebraska thinks they are. But seriously, like that, they don't have a very high opinion of themselves, is what I think.
I'll give you their explanation before you go any further, because I didn't there's only so much I can include in this question. So what they say is they're doing renovations on Memorial Stadium over the next couple of years.
Okay.
And so because there's going to be reduced seating as a result, they had to get rid of the Tennessee game, and they needed an 8th home game in each of those seasons. So that's why they have added Miami and Bowling Green and taken Tennessee off.
That is a bunch of malarkey, is what that is.
I tend to agree.
Wow. Like, you're going to take an elite team, a potentially elite SEC team, off your schedule because you don't think your stadium's big enough? Go play in Nashville then.
Apparently, they've been trying to make this happen for 20-some years at this point, and they were on the verge of getting this home and home, and then Nebraska cancels it. But could you imagine if Notre Dame took Alabama off the schedule when it's coming up and replaced them with Bowling Green and Miami in back-to-back years?
It'd be awful.
What people would be saying about Notre Dame and their scheduling.
Pete Bavacqua specifically, like they'd be hanging him in effigy, basically, is what would be happening. That's inexcusable, in my opinion. I'm sorry. That's inexcusable. You can find, I don't care how big your stadium, play them at a high school stadium. It doesn't matter. It's what happens on the field.
How about just charge a more premium price for that Tennessee game, and
sell them?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going to sell them anyway, so just charge a more premium price, even if you're going to lose some seats. Like, why? I think you're right. I think it sounds like a bunch of BS to me. Mark, it's funny that you say that, because that's the next question.
Yep.
Since Tennessee has openings in 2026 and 27, would you like to see the Irish add them, considering Notre Dame still has openings on their schedule for both of those seasons? So I'll pull up 2026 and 2027.
Okay.
So here's what 2026 has so far. Wisconsin in Green Bay, Michigan State at Purdue, at North Carolina, Navy at USC, Miami, Syracuse, SMU, at Florida State. That's what's on 2026 so far. 2027, Purdue at Michigan State, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, at Clemson, Navy, at Duke, Wake Forest.
So obviously the 27 schedule is still very bare bones, right? It's just the ACC schedule that is, the
2027 schedule.
20 years, basically, or whatever it is. Yeah, the 27 schedule. The 26 schedule is obviously way more put together. It still needs a punch up, in my opinion. I can't remember how you phrased the question because I don't have it in front of me. The bottom line is, I think they should do it. I think they should do it. I think I would do a home and away with Tennessee. I would. It gets you an SEC opponent, which I think should always be a goal, to be honest with you. I really do. And obviously there's no SEC opponent on the schedule in 26 or 27. At least I don't believe so, because that Alabama series doesn't start yet. So, yeah, I would do it.
For 26, you have Wisconsin. Okay, what are they going to be?
Right.
That'd be year, 5, I guess, for Luke Fickell by then. You've got Miami and Florida State. I would do it as a one-off in 2027. If you could get Tennessee to do like a Shamrock Series game, maybe in the new stadium down there in Nashville or something.
Oh yeah.
I would do a one-off in 27. I wouldn't want to add to 26 because even though like as of right now, like the 26 schedule, again, it doesn't jump out at you, but you've got Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Purdue, North Carolina. What are they going to be? USC. What are they going to be? Miami, Florida State. I think that you've got enough there in 26 that you don't need to punch that up. It's the 2027 where basically you've just got Wake Forest, Michigan State. If I would do it, like I said, a one-off Shamrock Series game in 2027 if Tennessee would want to do something like that. That's what I would want to do.
You got 4 Big Ten schools, you got 5 ACC schools, and you got 1 Group of 5 schools in Navy in 26. So you're looking for 2 games. I'm good with it, man. I'm good with the Bulls.
Like we've talked about, like with the playoff format getting ready to change and potentially only 1 at-large bid left over for Notre Dame and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think the 26 schedule has enough on it, in terms of names like USC, Miami, and Florida State. And again, there's still Michigan State and Wisconsin on there. They all have the, ability to potentially be pretty good teams when you play them. So like, I don't think you need to add, I don't think you need to add more teeth to that. You're not playing a bunch of MAC teams. I don't think you need to
got 2 games to add.
I guess that's true. You don't have any MAC teams yet. Who knows? I don't think that you need to punch it up,
okay.
Like to that level.
I see where you're coming from.
I'm not saying I'm afraid, but I'm just saying to manage the schedule, I don't think like your goal is just to win enough games to be in the playoff.
Sure.
Now. So I think that adding Tennessee in 26 might be overscheduling a little bit.
Here's what I will say. There is the potential that Wisconsin, Michigan State, North Carolina, USC, Florida State are all good to very good teams.
Right. They could all easily
if that's the case,
win teams.
Yeah, if that's the case, then the schedule's fine.
Right.
There is an equal possibility, in my opinion.
They could all be bad.
They could all be awful. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I am. So if you take the median, right, and you say half,
but you're also playing 3 Big Ten teams, 4 Big Ten teams because of USC. I keep, I haven't. It's not in my brain just yet.
I get
4 Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
And all those. Like you've got your double dose of Miami and Florida State.
And what's SMU going to be? SMU was a playoff team.
That's a very good point. SMU was a playoff team, and they're on the schedule
that
year. So you know that they've got a lot of money floating around out there, NIL and everything else. So like it's a very good possibility. Like Notre Dame plays Boise State this upcoming season, then SMU next season. Those like were both playoff teams last year, even though they're
I still.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you need to punch it up in 26.
I get it. I still want it, even though as they say in Blindside, orange isn't in my color wheel. I still want them. Bring them on.
Speaking of North Carolina, college football writer Stuart Mandel of The Athletic graded the offseason college football coaching hires. He gave a letter grade to all the different new hires in college football. He gave North Carolina's hire of Bill Belichick a C. He basically says it's a splashy hire, but NFL coaches have rarely had success in college, and Belichick is going to be no different. Do you buy or sell that, Vince?
I actually buy it. I do. I buy it. I think it is a splashy hire because of who he is and what his name is. I agree with that part. I just don't know that he is going to be a great college coach. He was at the basketball game the other night with his girlfriend and fell asleep. I just don't know that it's going to be for him. I don't know how long he's going to last. And they are throwing a lot of money at this program. I mean, they just reported today that the GM is going to make $1.5 million. You know what I mean? And they're going to treat it like an NFL team. The last time I have intimate knowledge of a coach coming down and treating their program like an NFL team was Charlie Weiss.
Charlie Weiss,
and
a Belichick disciple.
It didn't work. It didn't work. And that was the quintessential NFL model. He treated practices that way. He did all those things, but he didn't develop the guys, that he needed to develop.
That's
so they ended up stinking eventually, I just don't know that North Carolina has the roster that Charlie Weiss inherited so that he can just be an NFL guy. They're still going to have to develop guys. And I don't know how well Belichick is going to be able to relate to these players. Now, maybe it's just all about the dollars and the cents and the money, but I'm still not convinced in college that you can just buy a team and be successful year in and year out. That has not proven to be true yet. You know what I mean? You got Florida State who tried to do it. Successful than not. You know what I mean? Colorado, you can say that they've been successful, but they're losing all their talent. And now let's see what they're going to be. So USC, all of those teams, I'm just not convinced they're going to be able to put it together.
Yeah. Their GM, Mike Lombardi, who we're talking about, he's worked with Belichick in the past. And, he said that they consider themselves the 33rd NFL team. And it's just like the personality that Belichick has and the way that he went about his business in New England, it was very cutthroat. And, it's like either you get in line, follow the marching orders of Bill Belichick, or you're out the door. You remember Jonas Gray, had a career game for the Patriots. Then he was late for a meeting and he got cut the next week.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, okay, it's one thing to have standards and hold your players to those standards. I get that, but you can't just cut a player in the middle of the season and go pluck a guy off the street in college yet.
Right.
And
a good point. Not yet.
Yeah. So that's an issue. It's just the Belichick way is a very transactional way. And I agree with what you're saying. Just the state of college football right now. Yes, money comes with it and everything else, but it's a completely different world. And I just don't know that Belichick is going to be able to jump into this world after spending basically 40 some years in the NFL in a complete, same sport, different world though. They are worlds apart just in terms of how things operate. And again, as we were talking about before, it's like an 11 and a half month a year job. And I don't know. I'm very skeptical as well. So I buy what he is saying.
I was wondering which way you were going to go with this one.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't.
No, that's good.
It took me a while to get to the end, to the actual answer.
No, I meant it just in general. When I knew we were going to talk about this, I was like, I wonder which way Sean's going to go. Seriously, I wasn't sure. So I'm generally a skeptical guy to begin with. So
no, you are. Going back to what we were talking about a second ago with the schedule in 26, Archer 452 says there's a real chance only one of the schools that I named him 26 are better than 500. You're right.
Possible, sure.
Because that's 2 years from now. But with the transfer portal and everything else, there's also just as good a chance that they're a 10 or 11 win team. Look at Florida State from 1 year to the next. Look at where Miami is right now. And they're going to keep going out and going into the portal, I think, pretty hard for quarterbacks and that kind of it's going to change pretty drastically from 1 year to the next. To me, there's just as I think you said it. I mean, there's just as good a chance, you're right, that they all could be 500 or worse. I think it's 50-50 that they could all be 10 wins or better, though, at the same time. Because look at the state of the ACC and the fact, what the ACC got into the playoffs this year. And I think there's just as good a chance that Florida State, Miami are both playoff contenders in 2 years. And as you said, SMU was just a playoff team too. Sure. Who knows what they're going to be? So,
I mean, and that's the thing with the way college football is right now. There's going to be the one similarity that I think you can draw from NFL and college is the worst to first thing. I think is a legitimate possibility in college where that was never the case before. Okay. Right. So I think it has been proven time and time again. You can use the portal to be good for 1 year. I just don't know that that's sustainable. That's the thing. And so when we're talking about Notre Dame's schedule, there could be a 1 year situation where those teams are good, but is that sustainable? Well, that doesn't matter because we're looking at 26 in a vacuum. So that's the important thing. Still want Tennessee.
All right. Andre wants to know if you could change one thing in NIL in the transfer portal, what would it be?
I would cap the NIL money. I would cap it somehow, a salary cap, essentially. I would do that. The portal, I would limit. You get one free one, and then after that, you got to sit out.
I agree with that because I think that just where the portal has gone in the last few years, I mean, you've just got guys because of NIL, you've got guys chasing paychecks and greener pastures all over the place. I think you're right. Like you get one free transfer and then you've got to sit out after that. I don't know if they'll ever go back to where you have to sit out though, just because of all these different, everything's going to court, and that's why it's opened up as much as it has. But I think in a perfect world, that's what it would probably be. And I think that I do think that like from the NIL aspect, this is something that Jack Swarbrick brought up a couple of years ago. I would like to see a transparent, like you have to show what the like from NIL, what the player is earning and where the money is coming from. There needs to be some kind of national NIL register where that is shown.
Like it.
More transparency with that. So Vince, a lot of talk this week about whether or not the NFL should ban the Eagles tush push play. Do you buy or sell banning the tush push?
It's a huge sell for me. Huge sell. That is a loser's mentality. Well, we can't stop it, so we better ban it. Stop it. I'm sorry. You've got one team in the NFL that does that play really, really, really well. Do it yourself. Like I'm sorry. Just because you can't stop it doesn't mean that you ban it. Sell.
You don't change a rule over one team being successful with a specific kind of play. And it's a complete sell for me as well. Like, and I'm obviously, not a fan of the Eagles. I'm a fan of another team in that division, but I don't think you change the rule just because you can't stop it. Get better and figure out how to stop it, and or just do it yourself. Like, what's stopping other teams from doing this? They're just not doing it. And
other teams
have tried to some extent, but they're not doing it. So
exactly. Watch film and figure it out. NFL is the copycat league, right? Figure out what they're doing and do it better.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for the other 31 teams that can't stop the brotherly shove or whatever. Like, no, no, you don't make a rule because you can't stop something. That's such a loser mentality. I hate it.
I agree. And you can thank the Green Bay Packers for throwing this back out there. Apparently they're the ones who
well, I mean, they're losers, so that's okay. I understand.
Are they really, Vince?
They're not, but I'm a Bears fan.
Have you won since they won?
And they always will be. All right. How many? 1, 2, 1, 2, 2.
4 total. 4 total.
Oh, total. I thought you were talking about recently.
Well, recently 2. Yeah.
Okay, 2.
Somewhat recently. I mean, you've got was
Favre
2011 was the last one.
Favre
got one in the 90s.
Favre got one in the 90s. That's the one I remember. So
Rodgers got one in like 2011, I think it was. Then obviously you got to go back to the first 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, I don't count those. So.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the questions. Good stuff in the mailbag tonight. As always, hit that like button before you leave. And again, thanks to our friends at Believe, our new podcast platform. And of course, what we're without getting too overly, explanatory, I guess, about this, we're talking about they host the audio portion,
right?
Like the audio podcast. Like if you go to your Apple or Spotify or whatever, they are the host.
Yes. They're the ones that get it to those places.
Yes,
basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They're kind of our back end where we upload all of our audio.
It took me a while to understand kind of how all this works. But yeah, you got to be associated with a podcast company. And then of course, that's how we make money.
It's where the money comes from, baby.
That's how we make money, is through the podcasting company.
The long and the short of it is that's what we're saying. Believe, that's where the money's coming from now.
Correct.
So,
yes.
Thank you.
Based on download. So everybody subscribe to your favorite, whatever podcasting group you use, whether it's Apple or Spotify, whatever, subscribe. So it just automatically downloads. So it automatically goes in my pocket. right there. No, I'm just kidding. You also
There it
get good
is.
information too.
There it is. It's almost the end of the month, too. All right, hit the like button, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.